Hello everyone. We are at the first section of our great gender reveal. In this section, we'll talk about the indifferent gonad. Let's see what are the subsections of this section. This section has been divided into an overview in which we'll see what an indifferent gonad actually is. We'll see how it differentiates to form an adult type of gonad. Then we'll see the embryological structures and their homologous parts. We'll see what embryological structure gives rise to what adult structure, and finally we'll talk about the indifferent stage in a little detail and see what is the importance of this indifferent stage. So let's move on. First of all, we have the overview. Before getting into the overview, I'll point to the diagrams below. These are the diagrams of adult reproductive systems of both male and female. On the left side, you can see the adult male reproductive system here. And this is the adult female reproductive system. We'll go into the detail of these diagrams as we proceed into the lecture. However, in this overview, we'll see what a different and indifferent gonad is. So, a gonad goes through two stages, an indifferent stage and a differential stage. In an indifferent stage, the development of the gonad is similar in both the males and the females. And this stage is up till the 6th week of intrauterine life. So there's a definite stage after the 6th week of intrauterine life. In the definitive stage, the development proceeds to either a male axis or a female axis, that is under the influence of certain hormones, under the influence of certain mediators. The indifferent gonad after 6th week of development may either develop into a male reproductive system, which is represented in the figure here, or a female reproductive system, which is represented in the figure here. So, moving on, these are the embryological structures and their homologous parts in the adults. I know it's a big table, but it's very important and helps you to understand what developmental changes take place as the embryo forms the adult genital organs. So first of all, we have the indifferent gonad. The indifferent gonad is composed of the primordial germ cells, which in males give rise to, the indifferent gonad becomes the testes, the primordial germ cells become spermatogonia. Then the surface epithelium of the gonad in the indifferent embryonic structure, it becomes the Sertoli cells, which are the supporting cells, and the mesenchyme becomes the Leydig cells. Now moving on to the female counterpart, the indifferent gonad becomes the ovary, the primordial germ cells become the oogonia. Now the surface epithelium, it forms the follicular cells, and the mesenchyme is responsible for the production of theca cells, which form the theca externa as well as the theca interna. So, moving on, we have gubernaculum. We'll see what gubernaculum is. It's a fold of mesenchyme that helps the developing gonad to go to their respective adult position. It forms a pathway which pulls it towards its respective position in the adult. So gubernaculum, in male it forms the gubernaculum testis, and in females it forms the round ligament of ovary and round ligament of uterus. It is actually incorporated into it. We'll see how that happens. So the mesonephric tubules have two parts, the cranial parts and the caudal parts. So the cranial parts in males form the efferent ductules, and in females they form the epophron. Epophron is not a regular structure. In the caudal tubules in male form the paradidymis, and in the females they form the parophron. So let's talk about the mesonephric ducts. So mesonephric ducts are responsible for the production of ducts of the epididymis. Then it forms the vas deferens. It's a continuation, you know that. So duct of the epididymis, then it forms the vas deferens, then it gives off the seminal vesicle, and it then forms the part distal to the seminal vesicle is known as the ejaculatory duct. And the mesonephric duct in the female, it only forms the Gartner's duct. Now the paramesonephric duct. The paramesonephric duct is responsible for the formation of appendix of the testes and the prostatic utricle. However, in the female, it is responsible for the production of the uterine tubes, the uterus, the cervix, as well as the upper part of the vagina. Now the urogenital sinus. The urogenital sinus in males form the urinary bladder, the urethra, the prostatic membranous and the penile part, the prostate glands, and the bulbourethral glands. In the female, they also form the urinary bladder, the urethra and vestibule of the vagina, the paraurethral glands, and finally the greater vestibular glands. Then we have the Mullerian tubercle. The Mullerian tubercle is responsible for the production of seminal colliculus. The seminal colliculus is an adult structure in the male reproductive system, which will be seen in the subsequent slides. And in the female, it is responsible for the production of hymen, which is perforated at puberty so that the menstrual blood can flow. Then we have the genital tubercle. The genital tubercle is responsible for the production of penis. As we know, it elongates to form the shaft of the penis. And in females, it forms the clitoris. Then we have the urethral folds. The urethral folds which lie distally to the genital tubercle. They form the penile urethra in males, and they form the labium minora in females. And the genital swellings, they also lie distally to the genital tubercle and lateral to the urethral folds. They form the scrotum in males and labium majora in females. So this was the adult embryonic structures which are formed by various and their embryological origin. It's a very important table and it helps you to understand how the development will take place. We'll take the development one by one. However, understanding this table at this point in time will help you understand the development as well as the pathologies of this reproductive system. So let's move on. So in different stage, the external genitalia, they develop in the region of the cloacal membrane. So let's refer to the figure here. This in the midline, this thick pink section is the cloacal membrane. The midline section is known as the cloacal membrane. So the indifferent gonad is being produced, or this is the region that is being occupied by the indifferent gonad. So it's about 4th week of development for the embryo. Now the embryonic mesoderm grows around the cloacal membrane. So this embryonic mesoderm, this area around it, it grows around the cloacal membrane. Now it forms a pair of swellings which are known as the cloacal folds. So cloacal folds are formed around this cloacal membrane. This is a slightly later diagram. It's a representative diagram, not a true micrograph. This diagram is of a slightly later stage in which the cloacal folds have been differentiated into different parts. However, before differentiation, there's a thickening, there's production of folds on each side of the cloacal membrane. These folds are known as the cloacal folds. So what happens to these cloacal folds? These cloacal folds, now they differentiate. So the part of the cloacal fold which lies cranial to the cloacal membrane. So this is a cloacal membrane, and this in orange is the part that lies cranial to the cloacal membrane. This forms the genital tubercle. The portion of the folds that lies cranial to the cloacal membrane, it unites with each other to form the genital tubercle. The portion of the cloacal folds that lies caudal to this genital tubercle, it forms the urethral folds, which can be seen here in purple. Here, urethral folds. And anal folds are formed. These pink are the anal folds, which will help in the formation. Actually, the anal folds lie towards the dorsal aspect, which cannot be clearly seen in this figure. However, they help in the production of the adult anus. So, at the indifferent stage now, the cloacal membrane is also differentiated into or separated into or divided into two parts. This division is by the urorectal septum. So this is the urorectal septum penetrating within the cloacal membrane. This is the cloacal membrane. It separates the cloacal membrane into two parts. So the anterior part forms the urogenital membrane. So this is the urogenital membrane in the anterior part, and the posterior part forms the anal membrane. So the cloacal membrane is also divided into two parts by the urorectal septum. The anterior or the ventral aspect becomes the urogenital membrane, and the posterior aspect becomes the anal membrane. So the genital tubercle and the urethral folds now are related to the urogenital membrane. That's an obvious question. That's an obvious part because both the genital tubercle and the urethral folds, they lie anteriorly or towards the ventral aspect. The anal folds, they lie posteriorly towards the dorsal aspect. So both the genital tubercles here seen in the figure, this in orange is the genital tubercle, and these urethral folds in purple, they're associated with the urogenital membrane. So at the same time, a pair of elevations which are known as the genital swellings appear on each side of the urethral folds. So while this development is being carried out, a pair of swellings appear on each side of the urethral fold. These pair of swellings, known as the genital swellings, are shown in pink in the figure. So the urogenital membrane in each gender or each sex is related to a urethral fold which lies medially. This is the urethral fold which lies medially. A genital swelling which lies laterally. So a genital swelling is lying laterally here, and a genital tubercle lying anteriorly. So this is the genital tubercle lying anteriorly. So this in pink is the urethral fold, this in purple is the genital swelling, and this in orange is the genital tubercle. So these are the relations of the urogenital membrane in both the genders. So at this point in time, the morphological sex of the individual cannot be determined. So this is the indifferent stage at which the development is same in both the males and the female fetuses. So this was all about this section. In this section, we talked about what happens in the indifferent stage, what actually an indifferent stage is. We saw what are the adult derivatives of various embryonic structure and how they help in the formation of adult system, the genital system, the adult genital system. So this was all about this section. I would suggest you to understand and try to memorize the table because it would help in understanding the further sections of this lecture. For further sections, keep watching sqadia.com.